Well, hello there. I am Everett O'Keefe from Ignite Press, and today is going to be a special day. I've got with me Guerdon Ely, and Guerdon is a really, really special guy. And he's written a special book that comes from a pretty powerful story. And I'm going to show you the cover of this book, and it belies the touching story that's really behind it. But this is Lower Your Financial Handicap by Guerdon Ely. And obviously there's a heavy golf theme here because Guerdon is an accomplished golfer and has some great stories to share. But let's bring Guerdon on because today is the launch of Lower Your Financial Handicap. It's actually going up the rankings on Amazon right now, and it's actually a #1 hot new release today. So I'm going to bring him on. We're going to talk about him and his book and allow you to ask questions of Guerdon and enjoy this time. So Guerdon, how are you today? What an exciting day.
Yeah, this is fun. I'm having a great time.
My goodness. When we connected last year to start talking about this book, you were in the middle of some really trying times. And so I'm going to start our little interview off by asking you to tell us a little bit about who you are. And then we're going to shift to your book and some of the stories behind the book. But tell us a little bit about who you are, Guerdon.
You know, I'm a financial advisor, and for better or worse, people say you're not supposed to define yourself by what you do, but I did. And but I didn't let my work define who I am. I let me define what my work is. And so I got my work has conformed to me. And so I'm known as a financial advisor. My one identity, though, I think what you're alluding to, my one identity outside my work is I'm known as Barbara's husband. I was married to Barbara for 43 years, and she died here in September. And the last 7 months, while she was getting chemo, I would write every day, and she would edit my stories. And so I wrote most of the book in that last 7 months. And she used to ask me, she said, "Why do you want me to edit your book?" She says, "I don't understand this stuff and I'm not interested in it." And I said, "That's exactly why I want you to do it." Because I figured if I could make it understandable and interesting to her, then I had it. And I know a friend of mine, Ed Slott, wrote a little comment on the book, and he says, the book is about golf and investing, but people who aren't interested in either will enjoy it. So I think Barb helped me get it. And this book is a book on investing, but it's also my story and my wife's story. And so that's very special to me.
And I'm going to have you save a bit of that story to the end.
Okay.
I want to talk about the 18th green at the end of this, the end of our live cast. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So that's a little teaser. By the way, if you're watching this, please feel free, put your comments and quotes into the comment box. If you have a question that you want to ask Guerdon as we proceed, please put that in there as well. So Guerdon, Lower Your Financial Handicap. It's not too often that we see a financial advisor's book with a cartoon on the front. And in this case, we've got you as a caddy with your apron on, with your mutual funds and an IRA club bag. So why don't you tell us a little bit why we're talking about finances and handicaps?
You know, you forgot the last part of it, the advice from the Financial Caddie.
That's right.
And I have a brother-in-law who was on the senior tour for a number of years. He was one of the top golfers. As a matter of fact, he was one putt away from being the leading money winner one year, but Jim Albus. And I had caddied for him before he was on the senior tour. And when he qualified back in the 90s, he asked me if I would like to caddy occasionally for him. So I started caddying for him. And one year when we were in Maui, there was a woman who was doing caricatures, and she drew one of me as a caddy. And I took it home and filled it in with color, changed the cap to put financial on it, and that was the start of the Financial Caddie. And I just thought it would be a fun way to explain to people what I do, because as a caddy, I has helped my pro succeed, and as a financial advisor, I help my clients succeed. So that's where the Financial Caddie started. And one of my clients, Marion O'Leary, a couple years ago told me, he says, you know, you need to write a golf book about investing. And so he kept bugging me about it. And I finally thought, you know, that might not be a bad idea. So that's how the book came about.
Sorry about that. I muted myself.
I was wondering. I thought, did I go deaf all of a sudden?
Yeah.
You know, at my age, you never know.
I was going to say that the caddy analogy is perfect, because, you know, a caddy doesn't win if the golfer doesn't succeed, and the financial advisor doesn't win if the client doesn't succeed. I think that you're hitched to that wagon, and you know, and I love the analogy too. And it's one of the things I loved about the artwork here was, you know, your apron's got this mutual funds apron with stocks, bonds, right, cash, all these different things. And, you know, as a financial advisor, that's part of what you're doing, is you're helping to equip people with the right tool for the right time, right? The right club for the right place on the fairway or the green, right?
You know, it's, yeah, the right equipment, but I think the biggest analogy is the mental part of the game. Is Bobby Jones says that golf is played on a 6-inch course, the distance between your ears.
Wow.
Which is interesting, is that the neuroscience says that's there's a little part of your brain that's in that middle part between your ears is where fear resides. And so it's amazing. In golf, you have to make decisions under incredible stress. And it's funny. I remember one tournament, Jim was had a putt for the lead at Napa. It was on 15th green, I think. And I was so nervous watching him putt that I had the bag over my shoulder. I was shaking so bad that the clubs were clicking together like a dozen castanets. And I didn't realize it. And he was over his putt, and he kind of backed off, got this funny grin on his face. And he says, you know, you might want to set that bag down. So, it was interesting. Is I asked him how he could stay so calm. And he said, because I go through a routine. And so that's what I do with investment clients. We go through a routine. And when markets go crazy and we get nervous, we switch to our routine, and we don't ever vary our routine. And it works in golf, and it works in investing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You bring that up, and there's a part of your book where you talk about the older I get, the better I was. Right. And can you share that a little bit, or you know, because it's obviously a great golf quote and also a financial analogy.
You know, that actually came from my kids. I'm a storyteller. I talk in stories. That's how I've always communicated. In my case, it's true. I mean, the stories get better as I get older. I know I was talking in that story, talking about Lee Trevino, and he actually was as good as he remembers. I'm not that good. So it's the same thing in investing. We tend to sugarcoat our bad decisions. Our brains, we don't remember an event. We remember our last thought of that event. And every time we think of it, it gets changed just by accident, but also on purpose. We always make things a little bit better than they were. So after a while, a stupid mistake almost becomes a brilliant decision that almost worked. And if it wasn't for a little bad luck, it would have worked. So everybody talks about hindsight being 20/20. Our hindsight is bad as our foresight. We can't see what's coming, and we change what's past. And so as an investor, you got to be really careful about that. We're not as good at investing as we think we were. Lee Trevino was as good a golfer as he thought he was, but none of us are as good as investors as we think we are.
If you don't mind, I'm going to read a little bit from your book on this.
Sure.
Because I thought it's pretty pertinent. You said, and since you said, this is true not only because our memories deviate from reality, but also because the constant rewriting of events to make logical sense makes us feel like we knew what was coming all along. This knew it all along effect, known as hindsight bias, perpetuates the belief that the future is predictable. And you quote Kahneman, and he said, Kahneman's quote, "The illusion that one has understood the past feeds the further illusion that one can predict and control the future." It's like, oh my, yes, absolutely. So, all right, so let me take a quick commercial break for your book. All right.
Okay.
I just want to bring up here that the book is available today. Lower Your Financial Handicap. Advice from the Financial Caddie. It's available on Amazon today. The Kindle version is actually down to 99 cents as a launch special. So please pick it up for 99 cents. And by the way, if you don't read Kindle, pick it up anyway, because you'll be helping Guerdon with his launch. And you can also pick up the paperback in addition if you like. But the Kindle's 99 cents. So it's obviously something easily accomplished. So certainly pick up that book. All right. So, Guerdon, tell us, you said you had a friend or a client who recommended you write this book. What do you want readers to get out of it? What do you want them to get out of Lower Your Financial Handicap?
You know, when I first got into this business, I was amazed. People would agree with me intellectually and then go out and do the exact opposite of what we agreed upon. And I realized that people had to understand how investing works. We think in possibilities. It's possible that things could go straight up and we could get rich, and it's possible things could go straight down and we lose everything. But what's the probability? And so what I want people to learn is we live in an uncertain world, and it's far more uncertain than our brains want to believe. So we can't think in the possibilities because anything is possible. But if you want to make good decisions, you have to think in probabilities. And so that's what I want to get across to people, is that there's no right answer because we don't know the future. So we have to just keep doing probabilities. And I remember when my kids were young, I used to pay them to flip coins just to see the results. And if you flip a coin 5 times, you could get heads 5 times in a row, or you could get tails 5 times in a row. But if you flip it 100 times, it always comes out close to 50-50. And so that's what investing is. If we keep making good decisions, they're not all going to work out. But in the long run, the odds are in our favor if we follow probabilities. So that's what I want them to get out of our book, out of my book, our book. You know, that's what I said. It's our book. It's Barb and Mai's book.
Absolutely. There was another part of your book where you talk about denial, and you start talking about denial with a joke. Do you have that one at the top of your head, or you want me to refresh you?
Yeah, I don't have it off the top of my head. Was there 60 of them in there?
Well, I don't know. So it says, did you hear the joke about the 80-year-old
yeah.
golfer's visit to the doctor? You want to tell the joke and then tell us why it's pertinent?
It's
put you on the spot, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. The joke is the doctor is surprised at how old how healthy
don't assume we've heard this joke before. Tell us the real joke.
Well, the doctor's amazed at how healthy this guy is at his age, and he says, "Wow, you're so healthy. How old was your dad when he died?" And he goes, "Who said my dad was dead?" And then he goes, "Well, how old was your grandfather when he died?" And he said, "Who said my grandfather had died?" And it's, there was, did I get the Sam Houston quote in there? Is I think I went blank on that, but anyway.
Okay, I told you I put you on the spot.
Yeah, we can't. We just can't believe that we're mortal, and so we're always looking for immortality, and we're always looking to not deny the realities of life, and so we tend to deny death, and we also tend to deny the realities of life. So the only thing we're worse at, we can't get either one of them right. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with this story.
No, I liked it because one of the things you talked about how three's a trend.
Okay, yeah.
The fallacy of three's a trend, that you get somebody who gets something right a few times, or you see a few data points, doesn't necessarily create this long-lasting trend we all need to jump on, I think, right?
Yeah. One of my favorite stories is that the one at Pebble Beach.
Tell us that.
I was working for CBS on one of their telecasts, and we were on the 12th hole, and it was all backed up. And so I went over and sat on this wall, and I'm watching the golf, and this guy comes over and sits next to me, and I didn't pay attention. And all of a sudden, I felt an arm on my shoulder, and I turned, and there was Alice Cooper, and he stuck out his hand and said, "Hi, I'm Alice." And turns out, anyway, we had some common friends, and he ended up telling me a story about Groucho Marx, that he lived next door to Groucho Marx, and when he'd come home late at night, he was too wired from practice and stuff to sleep, so he'd go over to Groucho Marx's house and watch old movies with him because Groucho had insomnia. And he said, when my concerts, I try and act mean and scary. And he said, I was doing one of my concerts in LA, and I jumped out of the smoke, and I'm trying to look mean, and I just crack up laughing. And there in the front row was Groucho Marx in a powder blue tuxedo with Mae West as his date in a low-cut evening gown. He said, all night long, I just couldn't stop laughing. And wow. As he's telling that story, I'm so engrossed in the story, I don't pay attention to this other gentleman on my left side. And all of a sudden, I heard this gravelly voice said, "Hello, Alice." I didn't have to turn my head to know that Clint Eastwood was on the other side of me.
Oh, my gosh.
And I use that story is, Groucho Marx was a smart aleck. Mae West was the sex symbol. Alice Cooper is the scary rock star, and Clint Eastwood is the tough guy. And those are images that they carefully crafted, and you can enjoy those images because it's fun, it's an escape. But you got to be careful. Investment firms, they craft images, and they you got to be careful with those. You see these ads on TV where we have all the answers. Well, we live in an uncertain world, and there's not all the answers. And you can't believe all these people that say, I can take the risk out of investing, because you can't take the risk out of investing. It's all about diversification and discipline. I tell clients, you're not hiring me to be smart, you're hiring me to be disciplined. As a matter of fact, the discipline, I remember one attorney one time said, hey, I see all these investment advisors, they're all doing all these stuff, they're buying this and selling this, and he says, you just hold tight. He says, what do you do, and how can you justify your fees, because you don't do anything? And I said, I do discipline, and if discipline was easy, you wouldn't be 75 pounds overweight.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. What a zinger. What a zinger.
As an attorney, he liked it. Attorneys are used to adversarial relationships, so he appreciated it.
I love it. Hey, I wanted to point out that your daughter Hillary came in here and would posted a comment there. She's really excited about your book launch. She also said you have the best stories.
They've heard my stories. As a matter of fact, they give me a hard time. My next book is stories, because I started a lot of stories of when I was a beekeeper. So I'm going to write a next book is going to be that's the title.
Oh, I love it. We'll be excited to see that. When we were talking before we got on here, you shared something with me that I also think is a great analogy. You were talking about the experience that you had with announcers in the booth and the voices in their head. You want to tell us a little bit about that? Because I want to bring that in and tie it to financial advising after you've told it.
Yeah. Announcers are amazing. I mean, you watch a golf telecast, and the announcers are so calm. And while they're talking in their earpiece, they got a producer, and the producers are talking a mile a minute, swearing like a longshoreman. I remember one time, Jim Kelly, we were on a telecast, and I'm actually working in another one of the trailers, and I can hear what the announcer hears in his earpiece, and he's talking and says, we're going to go to Jack Nicklaus, and the producer's yelling in his ears saying, he says, yeah, I'll get you what hole he's on. And so Jim Kelly's saying, we're going to go to here's Jack Nicklaus, and he's on. And just as he says, and he's on, the producer swears and says, I didn't get it. And there wasn't even a break in his voice, and he just continued the back nine. And I couldn't believe it. All that craziness go. And I remember one of the golfers turned announcers, he was in the middle of one telecast, all of a sudden goes, how can you talk with all this crap going on in your ear? And it just amazed me that there's a reason they call him talent. Because that is a real talent.
Well, you also told a story about the guy the announcer. You want to finish it?
The one that they had the tape broadcast. We did one where they actually taped it, and then the announcers, because of weather, the announcers couldn't get there, so they taped the broadcast, and then the announcers did the broadcasting over the tape. Well, I remember there's a story of one announcer at Pebble Beach where he knew in advance what was going to happen. So he's watching the tape, and he's also reading the notes. And so he can figure out from the notes when a guy's over a putt, if he's going to make it or not. So he was going through all these gyrations, explaining why, okay, this guy's going to make this putt because of this, this, and this. And then he was saying, and this guy's going to miss it on the low side because of this. And what was crazy is nobody noticed anybody. Everybody just thought he was really smart, that he was knew all the answers, and it wasn't. But it's amazing. We really think that there are people out there who have all the answers, and that's what I was talking about in investing. There are guys that show presentations, and the presentation is based on not their history, but on hypotheticals. And so it's really easy to go back and say, okay, if you'd invested in this, you would have made all that money. Well, that's really easy to show, but people tend to think this hypothetical is what this person actually did. And I got fooled by it when we were doing 401ks all over the country. I said, wow, those guys are amazing. How could they possibly have done that? And he said, Guerdon, those are hypotheticals. That's not what they did. He says, what you want to see is not the hypotheticals, but what you recommended 5 years ago. What did it do over the last 5 years? So I'll keep my mouth shut about who that announcer was. Get myself in trouble.
I think that's hilarious. You also told the story about the announcer who was being fed just garbage in his ear, that he's trying to do the announcing, but the guy feeding him is trying to say something completely about, just not even about what's going on the course, right? Just having some unrelated story. And the analogy I thought is between that person feeding the ear with yelling and screaming and cussing or saying the wrong thing or whatever, that, still the announcer's got to be this calm, soft voice. This is golf announcing, right? It's very comforting and all of that. And I think about what you as a financial advisor here, right? You've got all these data points, all this, you've got, all these people are like, oh, buy this. This is the best investment strategy. Watch out, the market's going to flip. This is what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And yet really you have to be that calm voice in the midst of that storm, who knows when to just shut out that noise, because some of it's just noise, and to show discipline, like you said. And so that whole thing with the announcer and the just seemed like an apt analogy for what you do.
So much in investing is noise. I'm trying to think of a book, but it actually was about that. And so you got to be able to separate the noise from the substance. And there's tons of noise. It's amazing. You watch the financial press, and the market goes up 100 points, and they said, well, it went up 100 points because interest rates went down. Then it turns right around and drops another 100 points. It says it went 100 points down because Joe Biden sneezed. And it's crazy. I mean, who knows why it went up or down? Maybe a computer algorithm kicked in, or somebody wrote the wrong algorithm and that kicked in.
Thank you for bringing this up, because you're watching the market, and they'll say, yes, the market turned up today on consumer confidence, increased consumer confidence and blah, 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 which of course would lead you to believe that tomorrow those same consumers will have that same increased confidence. And the day after, when tomorrow tanks 300 points and the next day goes up 500 points. And it's like, if it was so objective as to A caused B, then it'd be really easy, and you could market time all day long, right? And just, make an absolute fortune, and everybody would make a fortune, which means there'd be no losers, which by the way is not possible in the market, correct?
Right. It's to Tetlock in Expert Political Judgment. I mean, you just, like I said, don't know the future. I think it's Kahneman talks about in Thinking Fast and Slow that you can, we see experts expert golfers, we see expert chess players, we see people who excel in things. My dad was one of the best firefighters in the country. Any major fire in the Western United States, he ran because he was skilled at it. But to be skilled at something, you need two factors. You need practice and you need a repetitive environment. And the problem with investing is it's not a repetitive environment. The signals that you see one time can get one result, and the next time you get the same signals and you get a totally different result. And the environment that we work in as investors is so unpredictable that it's actually referred to as a wicked environment. And in wicked environments, you can't be an expert. You can't be an expert just because the environment is so unstable and unpredictable. So skill, you can't trust your intuition in those type of environments. My dad could trust his intuition as a firefighter because the environments were repetitive enough. But in my profession, I can't trust my intuition. So I have to go on my routines, even when 2000 Y2K, I was absolutely convinced that the market was going to crash because of Y2K. And my client says, what are we going to do? And I said, we're going to do nothing. And they said, well, the market's going to go down. And I said, yeah, I think so, but we're not going to do anything. And they said, well, let's get out of international because they're going to go down worse. And I said, you're probably right, but we're not going to do anything. Well, let's get out of the emerging market because they're going to really go bad because they haven't done anything. I said, I agree with you, but we're not going to do anything. Well, the U.S. market went up about 25%. The international market went up about 28, 29%. And
wow.
And emerging markets did something like 80%. So I was totally wrong. My intuitions were totally wrong. It seemed totally right. I remember one Supreme Court justice one time said, we try to pretend we're really logical, but most of our decisions are emotional. We just use logic to try and justify them.
Wow. That's an important lesson. Chris has a question for you. I think this is great. Tough call, but she says, what's the number one trap you recommend we avoid in the current economy?
Thinking that this time is different. We always think this time is different. And in the middle of a crisis or when things seem overpriced, we think, oh, it's different this time. Well, yeah, it's different, but as Ecclesiastes says, there's nothing new under the sun. And in 2008, I wrote this story, and I didn't know at the time that it was the absolute bottom of the market when I wrote it. And for 18 months, the market had been going down. And in the financial press, everything I would believe and everything I was teaching, you see headlines that says, diversification is dead. Passive asset allocation is dead. Global investing is dead. All the things that I was preaching, they said were dead. And I said, I don't think so. I said, the loss is deeper and broader, but the principles haven't changed. And so we just need to encourage each other to take one more step and look to the long term. So when you think things are different and you want to quit, just to hang in there one more day, stick in there another day, go day to day and say, I can get through today. I can get through today without making any changes. So that's what I encourage people to do is take one step at a time. And yeah, it feels like it's different, but it really isn't different.
You bring that up, the word unprecedented got used an unprecedented amount of times this last year, right?
Yeah.
And, but you go back in history and there were a lot of other things that were unprecedented too, right? You could say 9/11 was unprecedented and our involvement in some wars. The Cold War was unprecedented. We've had a lot of things like that. And yet markets, over time and with, as you would say, it provided you're showing discipline and diversification over time, you'd be successful, right?
Yeah, I had a client in today, and we were just talking about it. And I said, they mentioned, boy, the market's awful high, and I said, yeah, it's awful high, but we pick an allocation based on what's appropriate for the risks that they can handle emotionally and the risk that's appropriate for their financial situation. And then we just keep it constant because we just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So that if their allocation is 60% stocks and the market goes up and they have 70%, we sell that 10% to get back to 60. If it goes down to 50, we turn around and buy back into the market. So, which is interesting, is 2008 when the market crashed, we kept buying as it went down, 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 and because you were buying as the stocks got lower, you only had to get back to here to break even because you were buying cheap down here. You didn't have to get all the way back to where the market was to break even. You only had to get back to here. And then by using some tax strategies, we're actually able to record tax losses to use in the future without we actually made money over the long haul. So bad markets can actually work out for you if you know what you're doing, if you have the discipline to deal with them instead of, so you just like on a golf course, you got to deal with it emotionally. And there's that Frenchman who was famous for his meltdown on 18 at the Open. We don't say British Open, we say Open. If I was a caddy, I would have broken every club in his bag except the wedge and the putter, so he couldn't have hit that driver on 18. So, it just, I mean, there was no way he could lose, and he did. And that's got to hurt. So you just can't let the emotions get you, and you have to stop, take a deep breath, and in golf case, you got to go into your routine. Investing, you go into your routine, and that's diversification and discipline. Diversification. I mean, that's my 2 words. That's, if I had, investment book, I could say diversification and discipline is the whole thing.
Yeah. So I think in 2 simple but difficult lessons to maintain, right?
Right.
So now, I kind of want to wrap this up, and we started with you talking about how this book really is also your wife's book. It is Barbara's book, and you had shared a couple pictures with me, and one was you and Barbara in younger days, and so I thought I would share that with everybody. What a beautiful couple, indeed. Would you?
As Brett Favre would say, I really outkicked my coverage. So anyway, the most beautiful redhead I ever saw. I loved her. She didn't like her freckles, and I loved them.
Oh, would you mind sharing the story with us about, and we'll use this as kind of a wrap up, and I guess share the story with us about the 18th tee, and we'll kind of use this to end this, because I thought it's very touching story.
Yeah. People read my book said, I learned as much about golf as I am investing. So is this a golf book or an investment book? And it's actually a philosophy book. It's my philosophy of life, what I believe in. And, this has been a tough year for everybody, but the 7 months with Barb writing the book, and the worst case scenario is she was going to live just past Christmas, and she died September 9th. And 3 weeks after she died, I find out I have cancer. And you deal with your own mortality when you go through things like that. But a couple of days before I found out I had cancer, I'm playing golf at Half Moon Bay, and I'm walking up the 18th fairway, and there's actually a couple with me, and they see the tears streaming down my face. I mean, I just cried like crazy. They asked me, what's wrong? And I said, whenever I play a resort course, my wife would always stand behind the 18th green waiting for me to finish. And I just caught myself looking for her. And But as I've dealt with my own mortality, I realized that someday I'll be walking up the 18th fairway of life, and I'll look up and she'll be standing there waiting for me again.
Amen. Amen. Guerdon, I'm just grateful that you shared that story, because we get locked in the minutia of finances, because finances are important, to our lives, but they're just a part of our lives, and they're just there to facilitate the things that are important, right? And I'm so grateful that you shared that, and that you shared those last months with Barbara the way you did. The viewers, well, I'm not going to share this with show it to the viewers, but you shared with me video of Barbara in her last week, and surrounded by so much family in her room. And I could tell that the family didn't just come visit for like 30 minutes. It wasn't one of those like, let's just drop in and see mom and grandma, but instead that they were there for a substantial amount of time. And the grandkids are playing in the room, even though Barbara's in her last days and hours, and the grandkids are there playing. And I have to say, my reaction was, let those be my last days. I want to spend my last days surrounded by my grandkids playing in that room. Just so powerful what you shared, and I'm just grateful for that, Guerdon.
Thank you.
Today is about yours and Barbara's book, and I want to encourage people to pick up Lower Your Financial Handicap. And by the way, just a shout out also, Guerdon, right, to Lisa Rothstein, who did the cartoon. She's a New Yorker cartoonist, and just knocked it out of the park with recreating that earlier cartoon that your friend had developed.
A lot better. It's a great, the other one was good, but this one is great. And it's interesting is that pose is actually Steve Williams' pose on Tiger Woods' bag. So I told her I want this pose, and she recreated that pose.
Oh gosh! By the way, Hillary said, "What a beautiful send off for mom that you guys had." She also says she loves you.
Thanks.
And Chris says that'll be a great day when you're walking that 18th fairway of life and see Barbara. Thanks again, Guerdon, for your time. We're going to sign out now. Everybody, thanks for joining us. Please pick up a copy of Guerdon's book, and then reach out to him and let Guerdon know what you thought, the stories that come to mind, or the impact that it has. That's important. Guerdon's email is on the copyright page of this book, and he would love to hear from you. So there we go. Take care, everybody, and we will. Just grateful again for your time.
Thanks.
Take care, and God bless you, Guerdon.
You too.